Hi, my idea for radical change in this year's water climate discussion is food. Martin said to make a 1-minute video, and I haven't. I've failed. I've made a 6-minute video. I'm sorry about that. I'll try and talk fast. No need to watch it if you don't want to. So we excrete what we eat. Our diets make up all that we pee and poo. The largest part of our water footprint, and we know that agriculture constitutes some 70% of freshwater withdrawals. So why aren't we talking about what we're actually putting down the sewer, the ultimate source control, by taking stock of the food we eat? Recent work by the Office of National Statistics in the UK shows that we underestimate our calorie intake, and when those are adjusted for what we actually eat, we eat 20 to 25% more than the recommended dietary levels. The NHS says that in the UK, it's 1 in 4 adults and around 1 in 5 children aged 10 to 11 who are living with obesity, and obesity constitutes some 6.5 billion of expenditure for NHS every year in the UK, and it's the second biggest preventable cause of cancer. So we underestimate what we eat. We eat too much and our health is suffering. And then the types of foods we're eating are also wildly misaligned with what's healthy and sustainable, and completely adverse to everything we're trying to achieve in the water industry. In their work on planetary health, the Eat Lancet Commission on Food, Planet and Health say that yes, we can feed a population of 10 billion within planetary boundaries a healthy diet, but it needs a more plant-based diet. We need to eat less meat. They say if we want to be healthier and thrive on a planet that can sustain us, which is kind of important when it comes to livable planets, we need to change what we eat. The IPCC say the same, the Committee on Climate Change say the same here in the UK, and you know, the Lancet's a medical publication. This is doctors saying this. So we eat and we excrete. What we eat and excrete is destroying our health and the only habitable biosphere we know. And every day in the water industry, we just kind of ignore this. We go about removing ever increasing amounts of nutrients from our wastewater as we put ever more nutrients in our rivers via runoff from an industrial agricultural system, which is responsible for some 20% of global greenhouse emissions, and it's plagued by ever decreasing soil health, results in further runoff of N&P. And, you know, this is fossil-derived nitrogen and finite sources of phosphorus from these, you know, geopolitically nightmarish places. And then there's the nitrogen and phosphorus that we remove from wastewater treatment works to address other diffuse sources like those excreted from animal agriculture and livestock who like to roam the water's edge. You know, cows get hot. In a climate crisis, cows get hotter. Bathing cows and other livestock, as well as the delight that is intensive chicken and pig farming, results in even more nutrient and fecal pollution into rivers. And, you know, these are the rivers that we want to swim in, that we're investing billions in trying to clean up in terms of catchment restoration and CSO management. And so the side note, which I've totally run out of time for here, is that we feed these farm animals soy, which is also crazy because it's causing deforestation of the Amazon. You know, it's from fragile South American countries with fragile forest ecosystems such as Brazil. And, you know, it's the same climate crisis that has seen us, you know, had a really bad food harvest this year in the UK, and you know, the second wettest winter in 200 years, which is all just going to show that our food system is increasingly fragile in the face of climate change, and it's all exacerbated by what we're choosing to eat and what we end up treating in our sewers and our treatment works. So if we stick with 30% of greenhouse gas emissions from the food system, we can look at the 20% of these are from agriculture and 10% is from food waste. We don't even, you know, let's not talk about even the food waste part, because who knows how much methane we're actually leaking from these green gas plants that we're, you know, anaerobically digesting food waste at. Is the gas really green if we're leaking more biogenic methane than we would leak fossil-derived methane from non-green gas plants? No, it's not at all. We're not measuring it, so we have no idea what we're leaking. And then, you know, what we eat also in terms of highly processed foods. So these ultra processed foods, they make up a really large portion of people's diets. You know, adults consuming something like 57% of their calories from them, and kids around 65%. You know, the water and planetary footprints of ultra processed foods we just don't even talk about. And we know that consuming them is linked to obesity and non-communicable diseases, yet they're the cheapest foods out there. And for some, they're the only affordable foods, which is just absolutely crazy. And it's funny because the phosphates that we add to ultra processed foods to keep those bakery goods like living forever are the same phosphates that we then spend billions removing from our treatment works downstream, except that it's not funny because we're killing our planet. So our food system pumps nutrients into waterways that are already suffering from nutrient pollution, and our bodies excrete what we don't need into sewers more than necessary because we're suffering obesity epidemic. The type of food we're consuming is helping bust through nutrient, biodiversity, climate and water-related planetary boundaries, and then we're spending billions in investment programs removing nutrients end of pipe. And of course, the side note here is if we wanted to fix, the obesity epidemic, we could. We could fix we can fix pandemics. We could fix an obesity one if we wanted to. Can you imagine the kind of green jobs in a more local, less industrial, more prosperous food system? They would be amazing. We can find the money for this if we wanted to. But as an aside, so in terms of source reduction and substitution of unhealthy food with more plant-based food, like planetary and climate and medical professionals are recommending, is that really so radical for us to embrace in the water industry? It would reduce our treatment plant required capacities, reduce our nitrous oxide emissions, it would reduce your bills, our methane emissions. Is it controversial? Of course. How dare you tell me what to eat? If I want to up my risks of colon cancer and heart disease, then I will. How dare you suggest I eat meat just once a month, like those healthy old blue people living in blue zones throughout the world who live the longest, happiest, most fulfilled lives anywhere on the planet. But, I could dare to tell you about this awesome British legumes company called Hodmedod's. They're growing fava beans, which used to be grown in Britain in the Iron Ages, but they really haven't been eaten in recent years. And, they're delicious, they're nutritious, they're good for soil, they're good for bees. They also grow carlin peas and quinoa, in Essex. Will we dare talk about things like companion planting, that the Three Sisters, which is this like amazing symbiotic, nutritionally complete mix of corn, squash and beans that, we can grow here. You can grow it. I can grow it. Your nieces and nephews can grow them in back gardens, in community gardens, in school gardens. And, if we really wanted to, we could use less fertilizers. We'd use less pesticides. We could, grow legumes which fix nitrogen from the atmosphere, less nutrient runoff into waterways, less end of pipe remedies, less lower nitrates from intensive agriculture, resulting in less nutrient pollution in our groundwater and river systems, resulting in cleaner water for abstraction, less nitrates removal. It's a cycle, isn't it? It's the water cycle, the water and the nutrient cycles, which are the ones we're supposed to be stewards of. So I guess my point is that there's these amazing local, sustainable food stories that we could be sharing in water. We don't have to focus on the negatives, but certainly we could focus on the recommendations from health professionals that would make people happier and healthier. Plant-based, plant-focused stories, organic food stories, indigenous wisdom stories, like they're all over and they're amazing. Will we solve it with water labeling of foods, with, carbon labeling or eco labeling? There's already planetary boundary labeling of foods out there. Is labeling going to solve it? Probably not, but I think we need to be more, and I think we need to be more radical. So imagine if water companies cared enough to find creative, tasty ways to engage with citizens about wholesome, nutritious foods and a food system transformation required in our catchments to create a healthier, climate-safe future. Water sources would be cleaner, catchments would be greener, and every single paying customer would be healthier. And when we looked our kids in the eye, we could genuinely say we're doing the right thing by them. Is that really so radical? I don't think so.